Sound of a crowded bar. Wow, do I miss this? I miss sitting down for drinks with a friend and having a good conversation. And if you're a choir director like I am, yeah, I know, sort of a niche market here, then you also miss going to conferences and meeting new people. So that's why we're here, to have a drink and to introduce you to some new people, composers specifically. We will, of course, talk about their music and get into some music-specific topics, but the plan is to keep things pretty casual. Just a couple of people having drinks and chatting about things that interest them. I'm Brad Pearson, and this is the Composer Happy Hour. Welcome. This is the Composer Happy Hour, presented by Whatever and Ever Amen. My name is Brad Pearson, and I'm host for this talk, and we are joined tonight by Melissa Dunphy. I'm so happy to welcome.
Thank you. I am so happy to be here. I am fed and about to be dranked and ready to go.
Yeah, perfect. Well, since this is happy hour, we'll get started with the important stuff. What are you drinking tonight?
I am drinking a hot alcoholic drink. I love coffee. I'm a total coffee addict. I have been since I was about 15, 16. So this is a hot coffee with a shot of liquor in it.
Nice.
And I drink my coffee out of mason jars because I'm a weird hipster. So that's why I'm a mason jar. And also, I can put more coffee in a mason jar than I would normally be able to put in a mug, and that's how much coffee I need.
That makes perfect sense to me. Do you drink coffee? I mean, I assume it's caffeinated coffee. Coffee at night, no problem. I can drink coffee at night too, but people always kind of raise an eyebrow at me.
I know. Well, the thing is, I'm a night owl generally, and even when I don't drink coffee, I'm kind of a night owl. I mean, it sounds really terrible, but you know what? It's the pandemic. No one cares. I go to bed at like 2:33 in the morning, and I wake up like right before I have to do my first Zoom at 10 or 11. So that's how I live my life right now.
Yeah.
I tell people, it's like I'm living on California time. And for all you know, I'm in California because we're all stuck at home. You don't know that I'm actually in Philly. I could be lying. This could be a fake backdrop, and I'm not actually in my home. So
right. You could actually be a cat talking to me right now.
It's possible with a one of those Zoom overlays to pretend to be composer Melissa Dunphy. If I send you an email at 3 a.m, you don't know that it's really 3 a.m. I could live in Sweden and it could be like 7 a.m. So
that's all true. That's all true. Well, fortunately or unfortunately, I'm sure we're going to talk more about pandemic life throughout our talk tonight. Heard on all counts. I'm a beer guy first and foremost. I like to drink, so wine, scotch, big fan. But first and foremost, a beer guy. So I am drinking a 2018 Backwoods Bastard from Founders Brewing, which is a barley wine, about 11%. So it's a little boozy.
That's punchy. My favorite is the Gold Monkey by Victory Brewing Company, and that's like pretty hefty for a beer as well, and it tastes like candy, and I don't need much. Because I'm a really cheap drunk. So
there you go. Well, we're gonna start, I guess, at the very beginning, and I told you we're gonna do like a little James Lipton style kind of talk. So, where and when were you born?
I was born in 1980. I had to think about that a second. 1980. So. I'm turning 41 this year, and I was born in Brisbane, Australia, at the Mater Hospital in Brisbane, Australia.
Excellent. Yeah. And tell us your parents' names.
My mother's name is, actually, it's kind of a complicated question because my mother's name is Cindy. My biological father is Greek and his name is John. And then I grew up mostly with my stepdad, who is Asian Australian, Chinese Australian. I've been saying Asian American for like years now. And his name was Joe. Okay. So this kind of mix
Yeah. And what did your parents do when you were growing up, or what do they do now, or whatever?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, my mother, when I started out life, was a homemaker.
Hmm.
And then eventually, she got odds as I got older.
Sure.
So my mother was an immigrant from China. When she was 22, she swam inland China to Hong Kong to escape the
Wow.
Cultural Revolution.
Hmm.
And then made her way to Australia. So English was a second language. This is the 1980s in Australia. There was a lot of racism against Asians and not a lot of opportunities for someone who spoke English with the accent. When she first came to Australia, she was a hotel maid,
Hmm.
the classic immigrant
Yeah.
in a hotel cleaning people's rooms. And as I was growing up, she would get odd jobs like cleaning offices at night, and working kind of factory positions. And yeah, so that's kind of what she did. My stepdad that I grew up with, he was a clerk at the electricity board. So sort of working in an office doing sort of low level office work. My Greek father was a handyman. He would do
Okay.
all kinds of handyman odd jobs. So we were very much like a blue collar working class family. My stepdad was kind of right on the rung of the
Yeah.
family. That's what we did.
And so, were they musical? Was music kind of part of your growing up?
Not at all. I mean, like music was part of my growing up, but it did not come particularly from my family.
Yeah.
So like a lot of immigrant uh, families, my family was really focused on education as a way of, improving our station in life, like upward mobility. You see this particularly in Asian immigrant families. It's
Sure.
like a cultural thing, in the time I actually not even born yet. When my mom was pregnant with me, she'd go around telling people that is going to have a daughter became a doctor. Like that was
Okay.
no pressure or
Yeah.
anything. But
Right.
yeah, she would literally tell people like, oh, my baby is going to be a doctor when she grows up. Um, and I guess she read something early on in my life that was like kids who go to music classes get better grades in math and science.
Uh huh.
Remember that thing?
Yeah.
Like everyone was like, oh, Mozart makes you smarter. And
Yeah.
if you do music, you're better at math. So she said, oh, well, I guess I take her to music lessons because she did that math to be a medical doctor. And so we went to these Yamaha music, like piano classes
Hmm.
when I was probably 4 or so. And I'm so grateful that I had this experience in particular because Yamaha music classes, it's not like a Suzuki method. It's actually very focused in early years on orals training.
Mm.
And so, you sit around on these terrible classroom organs and you sort of learn to sing solfege really early and a lot of oral exercises. And something that, I'm a composer now, obviously,
Right.
spoiler alert. And so, like, something that people ask me about, like my early compositional experiences, and I respond in these Yamaha classes. They did this exercise, which I loved doing, where the teacher would play a melody and it would kind of, implicitly end on a half cadence.
Hmm.
And then you, as the student, would improvise a melody to bring it back to the tonic, like improvise the second half of that melody. And I loved doing that. We'd go around the class and everyone would have a go. The teacher would play little different melodies and you'd improvise. Like, that's not a standard part of most classical music pedagogical
Yeah. Right.
practice.
Right.
But I'm like, damn, Yamaha, that's awesome. Like, we should actually incorporate that
Yeah.
because I think that's like something that set me on the path
Yeah. Sure.
eventually, 35 years later. So I was a very bad pianist. I just suck piano. I have no gift for piano whatsoever. But when I was 7, I had the chance to learn a stringed instrument through my school. And I learned violin, and that's where things started really taking. So I viola when I was teen. I viola time I was a senior in high school. I was taking every music class I could take. I was in 7 different ensembles.
Sure.
but the whole time I was, oh, I'm not going to be a musician. My parents don't want me to be a musician
Right.
because it was, musician. That's not a doctor or a lawyer.
Right.
What are you talking about? Like,
Yeah.
so actually, when I finished high school, and I graduated early, I was 16 when I did. I did this medical school program at the University of New South Wales in Sydney, and I did 9 months before I realized I don't want to be a doctor.
Sure.
This sucks. I don't have the calling. Little piece of advice. You can't become a doctor because you're interested in money or prestige, or you're going to make a really crappy doctor. Like,
Sure.
you're going to kill people with how crappy you are. So I quit, much to the eternal chagrin of my entire family.
Sure.
They're still not happy with my choice, but I'm happy with my choice. This is what. And the thing I will say, so totally kind of non-musical family, right? My mother sat in on those Yamaha lessons, and she would have been 33, 34 at the time. She picked up solfege with me, and she can sing solfege as an adult. She never had any kind of music lesson in her life. She can sing anything in solfege, in perfect solfege. And I thought that was brutally normal until I got to high school.
Yeah.
And my friends were like, I hate solfege, I can't do it, And I'm like, I really thought that was normal. And something that people say is that Chinese, being a tonal language, gives you this level of like orals training when you learn the language, so that you have like musical depths encoded within the language.
Sure.
And my mother sings everything in solfege, literally everything. She will sing in solfege, and there's a part of me that's like, maybe she is musical.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, so you were in lessons, not necessarily musical parents, but were they fans of music? I mean, is there music you remember growing up with? Like, what was there a soundtrack around the house?
I don't know. It's like I was a weird black sheep.
Yeah.
My parents admitted to me as a teenager, and it broke my heart, but I guess they had been doing it for, over a decade. They admitted to me as a teenager they even hated coming to my recitals. Like, it just wasn't at all interesting to them.
I think that might be true for a lot of parents. I think
you're not supposed to admit it to your kids.
Sure.
But they really we had a record player and a bunch of LPs that they had found discarded in a box at the side of the road. I played those LPs sometimes, and it was a really weird mix of like Disney LPs for children and like 70s soul music.
Sure.
And like Roberta Flack and like all of these weird LPs that were around my house. But it was not something that my parents were like at all interested in. In fact, like right from the beginning, music became almost this bargaining chip between my parents and I. They would say, you love music lessons. It's like the thing you love most in the world. So you have to accomplish these things academically in order to continue having music lessons the following year. So I would bust my guts, trying to get really good grades. Because the stick was, if you don't, we're going to cancel your music lessons.
Sure.
So, it was that really, they banished me to the garage at one point to practice violin because they were like, it's horrible.
Uh-huh.
So, I was just a freak of nature, I think.
Well, all right. So then there's not a lot of music around you at home. You were taking lessons, classical lessons. Were you falling in love with like classical music? Was that stuff you were listening to, or were you listening to a lot of pop music, and was that what you were falling in love with, or both?
Early on, it was just classical music. I have actually the perfect story to go with this. When I was 7, so I was in, second or third grade, an older girl, like a girl in seventh grade, had some social studies assignment where she had to do a survey of kids on the playground on some particular topic. And she chose the topic of music. So I remember this girl, I remember this so clearly. This girl came up to me and she's like, will you take this survey that I have about music? And I said, yes. And she's like, okay, what is your favorite song? And I said, well, it's not really a song, but it's Mozart's Sonata in C. Girl was utterly confused. Like, she's like, how do you spell Mozart? What are you talking about? And I think it was the first time in my life that I realized how different I was. Because, like, I could just tell from the look that this very cool seventh grader was giving me that there was something wrong. Like, this was not what I was supposed to say, and there was something very wrong. So, I grew up like that until I hit my teen years. I started listening to pop music, and even then, like, my interests in pop music were a little bit off the wall. I really liked Crowded House. I really liked Bare Naked Ladies,
Sure.
And then in my late teens, that's when I really broke out. Actually, my late teens is I tell people broke up classical music for a while.
Yeah.
I just was like, I'm over this. I need to see other people classical music. So I stopped practicing the viola for 3 hours a day, and instead I joined a bunch of bands. I played in some rock bands and a folk band and a South American folk music band, and and got really into Nine Inch Nails, really into industrial music, and and did that for a number of years. So that's also kind of an influence in what I do now.
And speaking of you playing in bands, am I correct that did you meet your husband playing in a band?
No,
or you just,
actually,
but you have played in a band together. Is that right?
Yes, only after almost a decade of marriage did we feel safe enough to play in a band together. Because you hear so many stories about couples who can bands and it's the couple, because it's like artistic collaboration is hard.
Yeah.
And artistically collaborating with your life romantic partner can bring up all kinds of like weird tensions and stuff, right? We bonded originally, we met each other because of the band Nine Inch Nails. So I was totally obsessed with Nine Inch Nails when I was 20, like completely obsessed with Nine Inch Nails.
Sure.
Like at the time, so there's a weird story. The equivalent of MTV in Australia had a nationwide video DJ search, kind of like almost like a reality show competition where you could, catalog auditions, sort of like American Idol kind of deal where they were auditioning the next VJ for the channel. I had just broken up with my boyfriend, who was a butthead, and I went to this audition just to get my mind off of him. And I did this audition, and you always do the greatest audition when you really do not give a crap about the result. You know what I'm talking about? I really didn't care. I was only there to get over this breakup. So I just went all out, and then I get a call, and they're like, you're a finalist, like come down to the station, you're on national TV or whatever. So I did this thing where I was a video DJ on this channel for 2 weeks. I didn't get the job because I couldn't say nice things about like the Britney Spears or music or whatever. So I was so into industrial music at the time. One of my duties on this job was to review my favorite music website. And my favorite music website was a Nine Inch Nails fan site run by this dude in America called Matt Dunphy, called the Nine Inch Nails Hotline. Yeah. So I sent him an email and I said, hey, heads up, dude, I really love your website and I'm going on Australian TV and I'm up your website, this little thing. And he wrote me back. He thought I was a guy because I went by Mel at the time and everyone thinks Australian. Mel Gibson, right? You're a guy. Sure. And and we started talking and chatting, and that's how we became friends. And then I came on a vacation to America 2 years later, and we ended up road tripping down to New Orleans and back and fell in love. And the next year I came back to America on one of those 90-day fiance visas. The
Wow.
infamous, mail order bride visa.
I mean, that's a story.
It's crazy.
Wow.
It is wild. Like seriously, it's very weird. Everyone thought we were nuts because this was 2002, 2003, and back then internet dating was still like,
Yeah, right.
like, are you sure he's not a serial killer kind of thing? Like that was the general deal. Like, I'm sorry, you've spent how long in each other's presence? Like 3 weeks total before you decide to move there? That's weird, Melissa. You're weird. But we've been married 17 years, 17 and a half years. So last laugh.
There you go. Well, we're gonna probably necessarily talk more about Matt later because you guys have awesome, wonderful projects together. But I want to backtrack just a little bit to Nine Inch Nails because you were a fan enough that you wrote a choral Nine Inch Nails, right? I mean, a vocal Nine Inch Nails.
Yes, a magical. Okay, so when I was in high school, when I was like that period where I was, joining every single music ensemble and taking every single music class, people sort of say, when did you start composing? And for years, I really didn't think about this as composing, but one of the things I loved to do was write Elizabethan madrigals. I was a real weird kid. I'm sorry. I just really weird kid. I loved singing them. Like I loved Olair Gibbons. I loved like learning all the parts to a madrigal and seeing how they fit in with each other. And so I started writing them, and sort of carried that skill away. Like I just thought it was a party trick. In a way, I was just like, Look at me, I can write a 7-part madrigal and it kind of sounds like it's Elizabethan. Isn't that great? So I had this when I was at medical school, actually, that like short jaunt at medical school. They have like a comedy sketch show that they do every year, the Med Review. And I was asked if I wanted to contribute anything. And I said, well, what if I wrote an Elizabethan madrigal arrangement of Nine Inch Nails' Closer, the famous... Can I swear on this, or is it not
absolutely.
Good?
Well, I mean, we're drinking. This is for adult audiences.
I know, I just never know, like, oh, no, children might come in the room. The I Want to Fuck You Like an Animal song. Right. Everybody knows it from, like, the mid-90s, right? And they said, oh, that sounds hilarious, let's do it. So I did. I wrote this, like, full-on, hey, nonny non, like fa la 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 Elizabethan madrigal setting of the I Want to Fuck You Like an Animal song. Yeah. And it's great because a lot of people don't know the words to the verse. Sure. So, it starts off and, everybody is thinking like these words are weird and it doesn't kick in until the chorus happens and then the audience is like on the floor.
Right. And now I might be wrong, but I think either a recording of it or maybe the actual piece is currently available on your website.
It's on is it like actually listed on my website or is it just mentioned on my website? If you Google it, you can find it on my husband's Nine Inch Nails fan site, actually.
I don't remember, but I knew it existed from your website. So it's somewhere there.
Yeah, I think people have recorded it, like, because I basically put the sheet music up very early. And so, every now and again, some comedy sketch troupe is like, oh my gosh, record it real. And then puts their videos up. So I may have it on the website as like, look at all these videos of people performing my first ever choral work.
We're going to talk kind of sporadically, I think, about your work as we go. But I don't want to like just dive super deep into that at any one point. Sure. But we would say that maybe that is not appropriate for high school students.
You think? Are you sure?
But because I'm hoping that we might have some conductors, teachers, high school teachers who are listening. What is, if you were thinking about music that you have in your catalog, what would be something that would be really great for high school singers or younger singers?
I have a bunch of choral works actually that are were actually written with younger singers in mind. Younger as in mostly sort of teenage singers. I'll get to the children aspect in a second, but Most, actually, probably the first one is It's Strange About Stars is an SSAA treble piece that I wrote for a high school group in San Francisco. The poetry is by Lola Ridge, and it was actually a piece that I wrote coming out of a depression in grad school. I think everyone, not everyone, but like so many people go through a depression in grad school. It's like the thing to do,
Sure.
right? We've all been there. It's okay. So I was coming out of a depression, and it was the first thing that I had written in a really long time that I liked. So I ended up writing a number of pieces for sort of young high school treble choirs. There's that. There's also Wild Embers, which is it's poetry by Nikita Gill and has some body percussion in it. That's also a treble choir piece, really good for high school treble choirs. And then more recently, I have a piece called what's it called? A survival plan of sorts. I'm like, what are my pieces called? I don't remember words and names. That comes in both treble chorus and mixed chorus. And it was written for the Susquehanna University singers, but I think it also works really well for a high school choir. If at least an advanced high school choir, if you're looking at an intermediate high school choir, I have a piece called A New Heart that is published through ECS Morningstar, which is SAB. I really liked doing that for choirs that have a dearth of tenors, because as I understand it, that is a very common problem in the choral world in high school.
It is. And, there's often, there's not enough repertoire written for it. And so often what happens, I think, there are lots of composers who are writing music for, say, smaller forces or SAB or certain voicing that also assumes that must mean young and immature, right? And so the text is sometimes skews like really young, but a senior boy in high school who's your one kind of baritone, and it kind of doesn't work. So it's always nice that there's more rep like that. One that I was thinking is Sweet Remembrance. That set of four is really great for a high school group. It has double choir in one of the movements, but it's really accessible double choir because it's basically echoing, right? I mean, you can kind of teach everybody all the parts and then split the choir, and it works really well. So that would be another one, especially if somebody wanted to do a kind of a set of pieces and have some kind of variety between them. So,
I think they're pretty accessible as well. I wrote those for the St. Louis Chamber Chorus, and the reason it's a double chorus is they love doing double chorus pieces. It's very funny. They're a chamber chorus. They have like 40 or 50 people in the choir, which I'm like, that's a real big chamber. Philip, like conductor Philip Barnes, like chamber. When I think chamber chorus, I usually think it's like a little more bite-sized. But one of the things that they do as a chamber chorus is these double choir works. I really love that rep. I love the idea that you could also, in a non-pandemic world, maybe in a pandemic world, you could separate the choirs and do it antiphonally. Yeah. And I love antiphonal choir music. That's really cool. So
I think choir directors are often looking for things that are that they can do something interesting visually with, because it's sometimes we get so unsure of how to do that, right? And so it's kind of like here's another song we know, and here's another song we know, and we're there, and especially I think for high school, when you're entertaining an audience that is primarily there because their friends and family are it's a different kind of vibe than a professional concert where people are there to see them and you can kind of do what you want. Anything that allows for like staging, I think is exciting. I always liked finding sets by composers that I liked, because I sometimes didn't feel, depending on the set, of course, didn't feel obligated to sing them as a set with all four pieces right next to each other, right? I can intersperse it with different settings of the same text by, somebody a completely different time period, or, it gives a lot of flexibility
Right.
I
You can
think
like
so.
shape the whole concert around, or a whole section of the concert around that set.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
go for it. Yeah. Sweet Remembrance is funny too because Philip Barnes, the director of the St. Louis Chamber Chorus, he comes up with the wildest ideas for the music that he commissions. And he said, okay, here's my brief. I want you to write a set of dances about death. Like dances for choir about death. Like,
Yeah.
and I just say, I guess it's my improv slash acting training. I'm just like, okay, I got it. Let me do that. Yes, and okay,
There you
great.
go.
So I will go find me some texts and I will write you some choral dances about death. And I did. So worked out.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, we're going to transition completely away from music because in addition to writing wonderful music, and this is a subset of many other things you do, but you sell teeth.
Oh, I didn't wear my teeth earrings. I should put them in while I'm talking to you. Yeah. So how deep do you want me to go introducing this teeth thing?
Well, I assumed we would probably touch on the podcast in general at some point.
Yeah.
So you can
Yeah. We
start
talk about it
somewhere
now.
with that, or you can just start with your tooth Etsy shop. Or
Check it out. It's a tooth earring. I haven't sold these yet, but that's going to be the next item
nice.
on the Etsy store. So, okay, I'll try and tell the very quick version of this. I live on an archaeological dig. We bought a property in on the border between Old City, Philadelphia, and Northern Liberties, Philadelphia. Really historic district that was basically destroyed by I-95. I-95 is like right outside my house. I live right next to one of the reasons my real estate was cheap. So
one of the reasons.
One of a few reasons. Yeah. Whew. Go listen to the podcast, The Bug House, for all of the weird criminal details. So we did some construction on the site and we discovered 2 privies from the 18th century buried in the foundation of the building that we bought. And because my husband and I are weirdos who are up for anything and also were like really interested in archaeology kids, I always tell people this, like, if you didn't go through an archaeology phase, at least a little archaeology phase when you were a kid, I don't trust you as a human being.
Sure.
Like, I'm just like, who even are you?
Well,
You have to.
I think people like at least dinosaurs, or I mean,
Right.
I grew up in
And
the
then
Midwest, and
Egypt.
like arrowheads, right? Was
Yes.
like going and trying to dig those. That was a big thing. So I think there's something, right?
You're good then. You're good. I trust you. When people are like, oh, I have zero interest in archaeology, I'm like, wait, you didn't even do a like pyramids are cool, let me learn about the Egyptian gods phase?
Yeah,
Like,
right.
no. Then I'm like, we have nothing in common. I'm sorry. So when we discovered that we had archaeological artifacts on our property dating from the period of the Revolutionary War, we went from basically 0 to 100 in a very short period of time. We went from knowing absolutely nothing about ceramics to, well, as I tell people, I was getting my PhD in music at the time. And the fastest way to learn everything there is to know about a subject is to get a PhD in literally any other subject, because you want to procrastinate writing your dissertation so hard that you will stay up and not sleep for several nights in a row reading about various other topics because you do not want to touch your dissertation, right? So I went from knowing absolutely nothing about archaeological historical ceramics to being like totally obsessed with them, learning everything there is to know about, the nomenclature and the method of digging, and everything that we could know in a short period of time. Enough that we did this archaeological dig and, washed everything and sorted it and put it together and started documenting our finds. And at that point, while we were documenting our finds, we would upload pictures to the internet. We got spotted by other archaeologists who lost their mind over the things that we were finding on our property.
Sure.
So as I said, that's the short version. We live on an archaeological dig, and one of the things that I find a lot of in our archaeological dig are bones and teeth, mostly animal bones and teeth. Although I found my first human tooth the other day.
Whoa.
Yeah, I picked it up and I instantly was like, this is a back tooth of a person, and it has a big nasty cavity in it. Like,
Wow.
you can tell
Huh.
that it was like someone had a really bad toothache
Yeah.
and pulled the tooth out,
Hmm.
roots and all, and then threw it in the toilet. And I found it, and I have this person's tooth. This is so cool. Anyway,
And so now is that one going to make its way into some jewelry, or is
oh,
that
I'm
a keeper?
keeping that
Is
one.
that,
That's a
yeah.
keeper. Like human teeth are special. I mean, and gross, but special.
Yeah.
So I'm really fascinated by teeth. I don't know why. It's like I have them like all over my desk, actually. It's funny that you were to mention them. I just have like little teeth all over my desk. I started collecting them even though they are really kind of archaeologically fairly worthless.
Yeah.
I would just be like, "Oh, keep the teeth. They're so cool. I want to put them in a box and touch them." I'm weird. I can't explain it. And then last Christmas, I realized I had so many teeth, and so many people I knew were like, "These teeth are really cool. You should sell them." That I decided to open an Etsy store and sell teeth. And they went like hotcakes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I made $100 selling teeth that I found in a toilet on my property on Etsy last year.
Yeah.
Just for the Christmas rush. It all died down after Christmas. But now the reason I'm like making these earrings is I'm thinking next Christmas I'm gonna up the ante and make like jewelry
Yeah.
from genuine 250-year-old cow teeth.
Well, I knew there had to be a market for them because I visited the Etsy shop and it was like sold, sold, sold. So people were clearly purchasing.
I'm so delighted because when I started collecting the teeth, the other like diggers and archaeologists who saw me doing it were like, "Why are you doing that? What a waste of time." And I was like, "Shut up. People are going to love these teeth." And they're like, "No, why? Who would buy teeth?" And then I made a ton of money by selling teeth. So
Well, if I'm clever enough in my editing, I'll try and put up a picture. There's like one picture with just teeth, and I don't know if it's just teeth or teeth and bones, but like just scattered
yes.
across a table. And
Yeah.
there's some other,
Definitely.
and I'll throw up the link somewhere to the Etsy shop in case people
I love it. This is
pining
what I
for
want to become
teeth.
famous for. I want to be famous as the composer who sells teeth. I'm actually delighted by that. Yeah.
The podcast, by the way, is wonderful. It's super
Oh,
shiny.
thank
I'll
you.
tell you, I so when I first decided that I was going to, well, let me back a little bit. When I first became aware of you as a composer, I shortly thereafter knew that you had this podcast, and I went, "Oh, I'll listen to that one day," and
Uh-huh.
I had not. And then when I first emailed you about doing this, which was I think a few months ago, I
Yeah.
thought, "Oh, it's the pandemic. I'm at home all day, every day. I will listen to the whole podcast before we talk, and I'll like have all this info." And I should mention, I have a 9-month-old son, which means I've listened to 2 episodes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
but I have to 2 episodes, and they're charming, and they're really funny and really interesting. And I think anybody who has gone through any sort of home ownership, like there's at least an entry point to kind of understanding what you were going through in the early process. Especially, I think in like 2021, where lots of people are like
Thinking
riddled
about.
with debt out of college and then have to like go, do I keep renting or buy a house? And
Yeah.
what is this weird process? And how do I do all of this? And anyway, it filled with just lots of wonderful things, and I love how much you and Matt make each other laugh through the episodes, which just makes it's really fun to listen to.
Yay.
So we may end up we may discuss more of that later. But the point is, people should go listen to the podcast because it's fascinating.
It really heats up episode 4.
Okay, I'm really excited because
stuff to look forward to,
there have already been lots of twists and turns, very very early on, and I can't wait to finish. So I'm excited for that. I became aware of your music mostly because I decided to program What Do You Think I Fought For at Omaha Beach, which was just an incredible piece to work on. I mean, it meant a lot to me. It meant a lot to my singers, and it was just. I wish there was more music like it. Can you tell us a little bit about the piece, about what the genesis of it was for you?
Sure. It is my first serious a cappella choral piece after, the Nine Inch Nails madrigal, I guess you could say. When I was in undergrad, I wrote, the Gonzalez cantata, which we might talk about later, which is a piece that was for choir with a little orchestra kind of thing. But I love a cappella choral music. It's so different to choral music that's accompanied by a piano or by instruments. Like, there's something so arresting about a cappella choral music and the kind of almost like, high wire act of singing without any other point of reference, just the human voice. I just think that's really powerful. Anyway, I knew I wanted to get back and write some more a cappella choral works. And the opportunity came up when I was in grad school. And so this video was doing the rounds on social media of this elderly man who gave a speech in front of the Maine Senate in support of marriage equality. Sounds kind of boring, but the speech was so touching, like so emotionally devastating in a way. And this man was so unimpeachable. Like, he's a World War II veteran, he's a VFW chaplain, he's a lifelong Republican, which was so unusual at the time. I think it's hard maybe for a lot of young people to realize how fast our culture has changed on the issue of gay rights, just in the last decade.
And I think maybe especially because even now still feel like there's so far to go that it's, I think, hard to contextualize how far we've come, right?
Right. Like, the 2004 election was for the issue of abortion and gay rights. Like, and people don't really realize, like, that how gay rights was used as a wedge issue to win an election in 2004. And then, 2010, marriage equality was not the law of the land, and so a lot of gay people were not allowed to get married. So anyway, this World War II veteran, unimpeachable guy stands up in the Maine Senate and gives this beautiful speech. He's not a seasoned, practiced public speaker. He makes everyone think of, their vulnerable granddad, basically. And he says that, he fought in World War II. You can see while he speaks, he shakes a little, and you can see the pain that is still with him from this war that he fought, decades and decades and decades previously. And then reveals that, he was asked at the polls by a woman, does he support rights for gay and lesbian people? And his response is, what do you think I fought for at Omaha Beach? And the way he said it, it was like, I get emotional just thinking about it. I remember seeing this video and just bursting into tears, like sobbing, watching this speech. And it was, well, the thing is, when you're a composer, when you're an artist of any kind, if you have a reaction like that to something, your next thought is, should I make art about this?
Sure.
It's like, if you have that huge a reaction, I remember I watched the video several times, and like every single time I would just cry. And part of the crying was hope. Hope that things could change, that if this one man who, demographically would seem to be on the other side of the issue, if he could see that this is a human rights issue and not a political left-right issue, then maybe there is hope for this issue to be solved, within my lifetime. And that hope clearly, I think, is warranted. So I went to my composition professor at the time, who's Jim Primosh at the University of Pennsylvania, and said, I'm going to write this a cappella piece. First time writing a serious a cappella piece, and that's what I want to do. He's written a bunch of choral music too, so he was all behind me, supporting me doing that. I spent a couple of months on it, which is a real luxury, not something that I usually have the luxury to do as a professional composer now. And it was hard. I tell people this all the time, especially at the beginning. A cappella choral music is among the most difficult music to write when you're a composer. It's so exposed. If you make a mistake, like a compositional mistake in a cappella choral music, like, when it's awkward. People think orchestral music is the be-all and end-all of composing, but if you write something awkward for orchestra, you just hide it with a bunch of cymbal crashes and timpani, and nobody will notice. Nobody will notice. But you can't do that in choral music, and you have to think about the voice and how exposed everyone is on the stage. So it took me a long time to write. And when I finished writing it, I thought, well, this is a piece of shit that I'd just written. I really was 100% convinced that I had written an absolute piece of trash piece of music. My husband basically had to talk me off the ledge. Matt was like, look, it can't be that bad. I'm like, no, I'm convinced it's awful. I'm just going to throw it away. I've wasted like 3 months of my life. This is so stupid. And Matt was like, well, why don't you just send it out to some people? Like, why just put it out in the world? Like, you spent all this time on it. You haven't got anything to lose. If it's really that bad, then they'll just ignore it. Like, who cares? So I took his advice. He usually knows better than me when I'm in that kind of a mood anyway. And I sent it out to a few things, a few calls for scores, a few competitions. And, a few weeks later, I get this message that I've won the Simon Carrington composition competition. And I remember just thinking, like, oh, were there multiple winners? Like, like, how many winners were there? They're like, no, you didn't. Yeah. It's like a real shock. And that really kick-started my choral career in general, because, it's a bit like winning the lottery, but it's like, if you get someone as high profile and respected as Simon Carrington behind your work, choral directors take notice, and they will actually like check it out and see what it's like. Sure. And since that piece has gone out into the world, I've changed my mind on my own opinion of it. I'm like, I guess it's not a piece of trash. I guess it's okay. It's amazing, you write something like this because you're really affected by something that you've seen. You believe in an issue. You want to communicate that to people. You want to, show people this side of an issue. And you don't really know until it goes out into the world how it's going to affect the people out there in the world. So, the two stories that I tell, one, I got an email once from a kid on the West Coast who had just performed it and sent me an email saying, thank you for writing this piece. It gives me hope that one day I'll be able to come out to my conservative grandfather. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Which, I would never in a million years have considered that this piece could have helped someone that way. And the other one was that Cantus toured the TTBB arrangement of it around the country, including to really conservative areas in the South. And when I talked to them about it, immediately after the 2016 election, so I was very emotional. They said to me, I remember that day. It was like literally the day after the election. I honestly walked into that concert thinking, what is the point of being an artist? Like, I remember thinking, what am I doing? Am I making a difference in the world? Like, am I just fiddling while Rome burns? Like, what am I doing? What is the point of any of this? I drove up to the concert in the foulest possible mood. If you remember that week, it was raining on the East Coast, like the sky was crying. Like, it was just the most depressed week. And I had this gift of, after the concert, Cantus, took me aside and said to me, we said this in all of these conservative places, and out of all of the pieces on this program, it sparked the most conversation, and it was not the conversation that you think. It was not conservative people getting mad that we sang this song about gay marriage. It was conservative people talking about this issue non-confrontationally, non-argumentatively, and saying, this piece makes me think about this issue in terms of liberty and human rights rather than morality, religious morality, politics. And that, I don't think that I was, definitely changing minds, but if I can make people think just a little bit less acrimoniously about a subject like this, which choral music is wonderfully able to do. Like choral music is like, it's so hard to be mad at a beautiful choral piece, so you can like slip messages and conversations in that, if you just gave a speech to that effect, might piss people off. You know what I mean? So I call it a gift because I left that concert and I didn't want to quit anymore. I wanted to keep going, and I knew I was doing the right thing, ethically speaking, by continuing to be an artist. And God, I know not all artists got that gift. I know artists who've quit in the last 4 years because they didn't feel like they were making a difference. So I want to say to the artists out there, you are making a difference. If you change one person's life, you're making a difference. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you said you referred to a cappella choral music as, I think, both vulnerable and arresting, and I would use both of those words. That the treble solo in the middle of that piece is just stunning, and it's the piece is it's a great piece. I think one of the themes that may end up coming through the episodes of this show, podcast, video, whatever it is what a gift choral music is, that we have words and that we can use those words to affect people, right? I mean, I've always found that that's one of the, obvious but difference between choral music and instrumental music is that we have text we can really plainly say, or not so plainly, but have real intention behind what we're saying, and I think the reason that I even looked at this score, first off, I think, if I'm being totally honest, I think that I found your name because I'm trying to remember the timeline, but I think that I was looking at the composer diversity database.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Because I'm trying to find as many new composers as I can that are not being pushed by publishers necessarily, or whatever. That's a whole thing. Anyway, and I think I just saw the title and I thought, I don't know what this piece is, but I know I'm going to be interested in it.
Sure.
Do you think, or what? Maybe I should ask it differently. Why do you think there aren't more composers, or historically have been more composers, setting texts that are maybe uncomfortable or are not just about beautiful, lovely things?
Oh my gosh.
Right? Which there's a lot of. There's a lot of music that's like that, and we need that music, right?
Of course.
We need beautiful music and happy music and music about all the wonderful things. Why isn't there more music that makes people feel uncomfortable?
Oh, I can answer this question. So, well, I answer this question as part of my my opinions and thoughts about political music. Because political issues are a thing that makes people uncomfortable, right? They're two sides to apparently every issue in the United States right now, including things like, is murder bad? And two sides to every story. America. Anyway, what I mean is, in our classical music tradition, there's this weird thing that's developed pretty much over the last 150 years, I think, where there's this push for music to be quote unquote timeless, right? That we have this idea in classical music now, and it's sort of, I think it started during the Romantic era, like during the 19th century, when there was this like looking back at the music of, you know, Bach or whatever, and sort of going like excavating these older things, which is good. I don't think we should toss all that music away. I freaking love Bach and Mozart, right? But there was this sort of, you know, this veneration of music that was supposedly timeless. And then it became, you know, as we study music in the 20th century, we venerate these genius composers whose music is timeless. Oh my gosh, you know, Beethoven's music is, it's as relevant today as it was in the 19th century, you know, all of these days that come. And then the effect on composers who are coming up is, oh, we have to write music that is timeless, you know. And the thing is, it's all a myth. It's a total myth. None of these composers that we were venerating as great timeless geniuses or whatever were thinking, I mean, here, to use like an analogy, it's like, can you imagine Bach being like, well, I have to write this timeless cantata because I bet in the year 2000 someone's going to be singing this cantata like to celebrate the you know, the anniversary of my death, and I better make it, you know, really relevant to, like, imagine thinking like now recent music and being like, you know, oh, I hope when I've been dead for 400 years they do a whole festival, like a whole Dunphy festival, where they sing all of my music and it's really timeless because it's about things that are still current in the year, you know, 2400, like flowers and stars, you know.
I hope you get your festival.
I mean, maybe, but you know, here's the thing. It's like, this is, like I said, this is all a myth. All music is political. Beethoven was writing music about battles and about political subjects, about philosophical, social justice subjects that were in his purview. You know, Mozart is writing stuff about the court. We look at stuff that Bach wrote where we're seeing the tension between Protestantism and Catholicism that was going on at the time. You know, there's like, every composer is writing as a product of his or her or their current time. And it's just that we've sort of overlaid this, we've squeezed it into this idea that stuff is timeless and should be timeless, and then that's morphed into this idea that that classical music shouldn't deal in current political subjects because that's somehow dirty. You know, it's like, it has to be pure. It has to be about pure musical ideas that are timeless, because touching on these other subjects, you know, it'll date it, or it'll piss people off, you know. And so, you know, I think there's a swing back that's happening culturally in the world of culture at the moment. When I started my career 15 years ago, I mean, I was still, you know, there's still a vein of thought that you shouldn't express your political opinions in your, you know, website or your social media presence such as this, because, you know, you'll make people mad and you'll cut yourself out of work and you won't have the career that you want to have, and you'll get blacklisted by people who don't agree with you, and then you shouldn't write political work because it'll get dated and nobody will want to listen to it in 5 years time or 50 years time or 100 years time. And I looked at that even when I was an undergrad and went, no, fuck that. Like, this is what I'm interested in. This is what I want to write music about. Sure. This is who I am. And anybody who's telling me that I have to like beige out my social media presence has no idea what social media is about. You know, sure. That's not me. So I write, as I said, I write about the things that I get emotional about, really emotional about. So sometimes that emotion is anger, or, you know, bitter almost. Sometimes that emotion is hope. Sometimes that emotion is wonder. Sometimes that emotion is, you know, anguish or sadness. but I have to get really emotional about it. And the things that I get the most emotional about are generally in the 21st century political and social justice issues. So,
Yeah, which I want
you
I
know,
want to ask you about a little bit. I don't want to get overly political. Before I do, I was going to just add to what you were saying about this idea of things being timeless, and I think it's not just in the compositional side, but in performance, especially now that recordings dominate.
oh
Right?
yeah,
There's this idea that things have to be perfect before we share them, right? Really highly
yes.
over edited before we share things. And especially now that we've been forced into this virtual choir nonsense, which at the risk of making lots of people angry, because I know that they would rather be performing live and that they're just
Of
doing what they
course.
have to do. I'm exhausted by the virtual
Mm-mm.
choirs. And
Mm.
mostly because they are so highly edited, right? And working to get out all the flaws. And the best thing about music is the immediacy of it,
Yeah.
is the moment of it, is being connected. I think anybody who's a real fan of any music, their most salient experiences are live music experiences. It's
Mm.
if you're a commercial music fan, right? It's the concert where, and it's not even usually about the music. It's like, oh, did the lead singer looked at me, right? Or
Sure.
I caught a drumstick. It's the
Right.
it's the kind of human connection of things, and I wonder why sometimes we don't make that at the forefront of everything we do. And just as you were saying, as a composer, thinking about the things that make you emotional now, that's what's relevant to write about. Anyway,
Yeah, no,
I think that's all connected.
I think there's a place for both, and right now it's tough and it sucks because, yeah, like you said, most of us live for live music in the choral music world, um, and the experience of connecting with an audience. I mean, the thing that I love to do as a composer when I'm having one of my pieces premiered or whatever, I hate when they seat me at the front. I love to be sat at the back of the room
Sure.
because the thing that I love to do is watch the audience react.
Yeah.
That gives me so much information about whether I was successful or not successful at writing my piece. Like, is the audience, like, it's even as small as I'll just watch to see the audience breathes in when the conductor goes like this.
Sure.
And if I see the audience with the choir breathe in, I'm like, oh, we've got him. We got him. Like they're on the hook now. We've got him, And then you see the reactions between people, if they laugh or they'll turn to each other and be like, that was really good or whatever, Like that's what I feed off
Yeah.
in those performances. That's what I love to see, the beautiful nature of that human connection where like a whole room is breathing together. Recorded music is so important, but it can't touch that. I
Yeah.
think you're right. And unfortunately, this is where we are and we're stuck. And I also think recorded music, even in non-pandemic times, is a wonderful way of introducing people, from around the world to people that they would not have been able to see locally, or people they couldn't afford to see locally. So, yes, that's really important as well. But right now, it's just tough because we're missing it so much.
All bets are off it right now. I mean, it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
I don't want to delve too deeply into politics because we don't have the time, or probably anyone has the energy for any of that. But I think it's probably no surprise to anyone who's either been listening thus far or who knows anything about you to know that you are politically active and have feelings about things. And in fact, were you? Am I remembering right? Were you featured on either the news or were you on like CNN's page?
Oh, last year during the protests?
Yeah.
So yes, it wasn't CNN. It was AFP, which is international. So it was kind of, I live in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And I got I saw a tweet go by, a couple days after the election that said protest right now outside Reading Terminal Market because of the count that's going on in Philadelphia. And I had been screaming for months, actually, that this count was going to be a flashpoint. You know, I was actually, it didn't turn out as bad as my one area, which I'm mad about, but I was actually really worried that there was going to be violence in Philadelphia because it was plainly predictable that that count was going to be a clusterfuck, frankly, like that people were going to protest, and it was, you know, going to be Trump people claiming that they won and Biden people saying you need to finish the count. So I saw that tweet go by and I was like, well, this is my chance to protect my city. If the worst case scenario happens, you know, I'm going to put myself on the line. This is grab my mask, grab a hat, let's go. And I went out to the protest and I had a sign. I had a sign which had a picture of Gritty on it. Gritty, the NHL mascot that we all love in Philly. I've never been to a hockey game in my entire life. I don't know how that game works, but I freaking love Gritty.
Yeah.
So I had a sign, it had a picture of Gritty on it, and it said, fuck around and find out. And I sat myself in front of the Trump protest, and I danced my ass off. This is basically what I did. You know, there were hundreds of people dancing with me, and it was like a joyous celebration that had teeth in the back of it, because we knew that we were dancing for democracy, essentially. Like it was a dance protest for democracy. Anyway, I think because of my sign and because, you know, I'm a raver from way back, so I know how to move my butt. I got a bunch of reporters coming up to me at various points during the protest and asking to take my picture or asking me for my thoughts. Mother Jones spoke to me, which I was so like, squee! I love your publication. This is so great. And then AFP, and I also got on like BBC News, and a friend of mine, like in Scandinavia, was like, I saw you on my 6 o'clock news. And I was just like, this is hilarious. Yeah. So I am well on the record on international wire services as being anti-Trump, I guess you could say.
For the many people, I say many people, I hope many people are listening to this. For the people listening to this who are not sports fans and not from Philadelphia, can you describe Gritty? I'm gonna try and throw up a picture, but can you describe Gritty to them?
Yes. Okay, so Philadelphia is known for its weird mascots for sports. I guess we have this thing for our baseball team called the Philly Fanatic, which is like a weird green monster with a funnel for a mouth. It's just, it doesn't make any sense. I've never particularly liked the Fanatic. But then a couple of years ago, the NHL team, the Philadelphia Flyers, announced that they had a new mascot. And Gritty is like this scruffy orange monster with massive googly eyes and this really big grin, like a rictus grin, and a tubby body, like a really sort of hoopy tubby body, and he's really wacky. He doesn't speak, you know, like most mascots. He doesn't speak, and he just is like wild and crazy.
He's terrifying.
Oh, well, see, this is the thing. So when he was first announced, I love this timeline. He was first announced in Philadelphia. People saw the news first, and we were all like, what the fuck? And then it got like on national news, like the national news was like, look at this ridiculous mascot that Philadelphia Flyers have just announced. And when that happened, when other people outside, this is very classic Philly, when other people outside of Philly started being like, what the fuck? That sucks. Philadelphia was like, you leave Gritty alone. Yeah. Fuck you. Like Gritty is a treasure, and we love Gritty, actually. We've known about Gritty for 20 minutes, and I would die for Gritty, actually. And then over the course of the next few months, Gritty went like massively viral online and became a mascot for the political left. Yeah. Which you know, this is what happens when you release something into the world, is you lose control of it to a certain degree. Right. At this point, the Flyers themselves, the PR for the Flyers were very smart about it. You know, they would release Gritty videos that sort of were played into the viral mania about Gritty worldwide, I guess. So yeah, I'm really proud of Gritty.
Yeah.
I really am. I'm like, he does Gritty. Wait, I think Gritty is like officially according to as a it's canon according to the leftist mascot Gritty that Gritty is non-binary. So they are they are so representative of our city.
Yeah.
Like this kind of underdog, you know, other people from outside the city don't quite understand.
Yeah.
But if you are, you know, actually represented by the city, you really would like give your all for the city. And that's why I put him on the sign.
Yeah.
I was like, this is what I'm doing. I am putting my, you know, I'm standing in front of these wing protesters who frankly terrify me.
Sure.
You know, standing just I don't know where they shipped these people in from, but they were not from Philly. You know, standing in front of them, basically, you know, holding the line and telling them that they're not welcome, spreading an anti-democratic message in the city where American democracy was invented. And yeah, Gritty was the perfect mascot for that. So God bless Gritty, honestly.
I assume you've seen him featured on John Oliver's show.
Yes.
Because I just is hilarious.
Do you know that John Oliver plays the viola?
I did not.
I just found this out the other day, and as a violist, I would never been happier in my life. I was screaming.
Yeah, sure.
No wonder I like that guy.
Yeah. I want to ask you some like kind of quick kind of, you know, things. You're in Philly. You're a Gritty fan. By the way, go to a hockey game because you don't have to be a sports fan or know anything about hockey. Hockey games have such an incredible energy to them, more so than most sports. Hockey and soccer probably are just so high energy, and you would have such a great time. I mean, Gritty will be there, right? So, I mean, that's reason enough to go.
I'll just go for Gritty.
Yeah, but go to a hockey game, you will not regret it.
All right.
Okay, so you're in Philly. Are you a cheesesteak fan? And if so, do you have a favorite cheesesteak?
I do like a cheesesteak, not every day, but I do like a cheesesteak. I am a little bit bougie, so I take my cheesesteak with provolone. And gosh, I can't remember the name of the place now because I haven't been there in over a year, but there's a place in Old City that I tend to get my cheesesteaks from, or I usually get my husband to go get me a cheesesteak because I'm in a cheesesteaky mood.
Yeah, there you go. What are you listening to right now? What music are you excited, or any albums or artists right now that you're super excited about?
Oh boy. I mean, lots of stuff all over the place, but let me drop a name. So Nakuru Okoye, who Okoye is her last name. She wrote this amazing opera a few years ago called Harriet Tubman about, believe it or not, Harriet Tubman. And it is fire. It's like really, really amazing. You can watch the whole thing on one of the video services like Vimeo or something, but if you go to her website, you can watch the whole thing. And the end of it, like the last scene of it, is just breathtakingly powerful. So, and yeah, she's a composer that, I mean, she's already high profile, but I need her profile to be even higher because I just think she is so good at writing vocal music and she is so good at setting text. She can do the dramatic thing, she can do the emotional thing, and she can be funny as well. And I just love that about her. So go check her out.
Any like pop commercial? I hate the pop designation, but you know what I mean? Any like commercial music or pop music that you're really into right now?
What have I been listening to lately? I'm trying to think. I listened to like, I mean, I've been going back to a lot of old, I mean, I'm old now, I think, you know, at 41, I think I'm old. So, you know what, that thing where you age and you go back to all the music that you really loved when you were 20?
Do I?
So, whenever I'm feeling like I need to get a little more energy, like I feel like I'm about to fall asleep, I go listen to Ministry.
Okay.
From The Mind is a Terrible Thing to Taste. So it's, really well produced industrial music, that album. And I can't help it. I just start dancing. And then, it's my workout music.
Yeah, cool. Have you binged any shows during the pandemic? What are there any favorites that you've seen recently?
What have I liked recently? I binge constantly. It's the only way I can switch my mind off is to watch shows about murder. So,
Uh-huh.
yeah. But I can't do that all the time because my husband can't take all of the murder shows that I watch.
Yeah.
This is a very common female male dynamic thing where the woman is like, I will watch lots of shows about the worst murder stories you've ever heard, and
Yeah.
the man is like, can we stop watching shows about murder? I'm like, no, it's
Yeah,
relaxing.
sure.
Um, but here's one. My Matt and I, what we can watch together that we've been watching a ton of is Time Team, which is a British show hosted by the guy who played Baldrick in Blackadder back in the 90s.
Okay.
And it's a reality show, I guess you could call it, about archaeological digs in UK. It went on for like 17 or 18 seasons, so there's a ton of it available online, and they just announced like last month that they are reviving the show after a several year hiatus. So yeah, the basic premise of the show is they go to an archaeological dig, or a place where they suspect is an archaeological dig. They have 3 days of digging to find artifacts, and then you follow them on that journey. Man, I could watch that show forever. Like, it's just so... You know how British reality shows are like healthier than American reality shows? You know what I'm talking about?
Confession, I don't watch a lot of British realities.
Oh, like the cake show, right? The British Bake Off.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I've watched lots of that.
Yeah, it's so like
It's wholesome.
It's so like yes,
Yeah.
the most wholesome reality
For sure.
shows. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. So that's what Time Team does for me.
You know what? Here's the the biggest way I can explain the difference between British reality shows and American reality shows is Gordon Ramsay has shows in places. In
Yes.
America, he's right.
Yes.
If you watch Hell's Kitchen, which is not great television, right? But if you
Sure.
watch Hell's Kitchen, he's mean and
Yeah.
just awful and saying the dumbest insults, just angry at people. But if you watch one of his British competition shows, he's like, "You'll get him next time." You know, and like it's like a completely different thing.
Right.
So that's
Which
how I would
means-
explain it.
Yeah, because he's been directed by a producer or someone to be meaner in the American ones,
For sure.
because they're like, this is what's going to sell. You have to be a total dick to everyone on the show. And America will be like, I want to watch the sweary dick Brit guy tell people that they're stupid.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Whereas actually what I just want is for people to be nice to each other and model like what it's like to be nice to each other. That's what I need right now.
Yeah, I think we all need that.
Yeah.
Right. Man, it's been a long year, hasn't it?
Oh my God. Yeah.
In just about every way possible. I mean, it's like we've been through the election and then some, and everything
Yeah.
leading up to, and the pandemic, and snow in Texas, and I mean, just like it keeps coming.
It's exhausting.
Keeps coming, which is part of the reason I'm so glad to be starting this new venture and hanging out and drinking with people who I admire and enjoy talking to. And I'll tell you, when I thought about this whole kind of setup, you were the absolute first person that came to mind, because you seem to have so many varied interests and are so passionate about all of them, right? I take it that you're not a person who's into eating lightly. And I so appreciate that. It's one of the things that I am attracted to most in people is just people that are passionate about things,
Sure.
because I feel like we so often in life are just passive about things that we do, right? And
Right.
I mean, I could talk to anybody in any profession if they're really excited about what they do, because that excites me.
Right.
So
Right.
I was excited to talk to you because you seem
Yay!
excited about things, and I love that. So
I am excited about the things that I do because it's cool to care. Remember when we were like in the 90s when it was like cool to not care? I never identified with that. So I'm
yeah,
like, I like caring about things. I
yeah.
like that feeling. So
Well, thank you so much. I could talk to you for hours, but I'm sure we both have many other things going
yeah.
on. And so I will say thank you so much for spending some time with us. And, cheers.
Cheers to
I'm
you.
at the
It's my
bottom,
pleasure. I
bottom of the
know.
glass. Oh, you too. Perfect.
I know.
Thank you for joining us for episode 1 of the Composer Happy Hour, presented by Whatever and Ever Amen. Thank you to our guest, Melissa Dunphy, for spending some time with us. You should go and listen to her podcast, The Bog House. It is fascinating and incredibly entertaining. And when you're done, stop by her Etsy shop to buy some teeth earrings. But most importantly, go check out her music and program it with your ensembles. She is writing some amazing stuff. Our guest next time is Joshua Shank, and we look forward to sharing another drink with you then. Thank you so much for listening. As always, if you like what you hear, you can show us some love and buy us a beer by clicking the support link at the bottom of this page. Your contributions go to supporting future projects by Whatever and Ever Amen. Thanks again, everyone. Cheers.